Pride had everything it took to be a rock and roll idol. A star at 17, he had a weekly slot on TV's biggest pop show, Oh Boy, alongside Cliff and Marty. But unlike Cliff, Dickie's career was far from clean cut.
He was the first British rock and roller to die of drugs, and in a pretty spectacular way.
I go ape every time I see you smile.
Dickie Pride was a talented singer and trained musician. At 17, he became one of Britain's brightest stars with his weekly appearances on TV's Oh Boy show, where he was dubbed the Sheik of Sheik. But his early promise was never fulfilled, and Pride struggled against the disappointment and drug addiction which accompanied his quest for fame.
Singing our love song.
I was immensely impressed with that recording. Coming from an out-and-out rock and roller, that like went, what's that? What's he doing? He's singing jazz with a big band. And 3 or 4 years later, I was trying to do the same thing.
Here's the guy I told you about, the sensational Shakin Dicky Pride, and his first record, A Slippin' and a Slidin'.
Slippin' and a slidin', creepin' and a hidin', been told a long time ago. I've been told the devil you've been bold, I won't go no blues no more. Mola mother lamb, she's a solid fan, it's not you better surrender. Mola mother lamb, she's a solid fan, it's not you better surrender. Slippin' and a slidin', creepin' and a hidin', go to bed, no blues no more.
Born Richard Neller in October 1941, he was raised on a tough Croydon council estate. His sister Anne remembers that their Welsh mother encouraged him to sing at every opportunity.
Whenever there was a family gathering, he would be strutted out and do his stuff. And he did have a beautiful voice, and he loved performing. He loved to be the centre of attention.
It was no surprise when, aged just 11, Dickie won a scholarship to the Royal College of Church Music.
It was there that he learnt to read music and to harmonise and all the rest of it, and he did have a lovely voice then.
He sang in Canterbury Cathedral, and great things were expected of him.
Well done. Now sopranos. Give them D flat at the bottom of the page, will you? Go on, go. Yes.
1, 2, 3 o'clock.
When Bill Haley topped the charts in 1956, Dickie was just 15. It was also the year that his father died.
I think 15 for a boy is just when you need a father's guidance, and that was when he lost it.
His voice had broken and his choir boy days were over. He took a series of menial jobs to help support the family, as friend and would-be rock and roller Duffy Power remembers.
He lost his lovely gig at the college, the church music. He had to go and graft in some, chippy, menial work, the kind of work that was around in the late 50s.
But music was still the main thing, and he formed a group. The Semitones would compete in all the local rock and roll contests. His girlfriend at the time was Mandy Atkinson.
I don't think he ever went out thinking, I'm going to be famous. He always knew he could sing, and he could sing. And he would sing in pubs and clubs and anywhere, talent contests, anywhere.
I go ape every time I see you smile. I'm a ding-dong gorilla and I carry your caveman style. I'm gonna bop you on the head and love you all the while. Ring-a-ling-a-ting-ting-tong, I'm related to old King Kong. Baby, won't you say you're mine with a honky-tonky monkey shine.
In Croydon there's a Surrey Street market, and the boys down there were quite tough, and they became our sort of bodyguards, and it was really quite strange because they were big, tough guys. But this all happened, because Dick was a singer, and a bloody good one as well.
2 weeks after his 17th birthday, Dickie was seen singing in the Tooting pub by pianist Russ Conway, a huge star at the time, with #1 hit records Side Saddle and Royal Event.
he was obviously interested in Dick, and so he came along with Jack Good to the castle, tooting, and it all sort of started from there.
He immediately became a regular on TV's only rock and roll show, Jack Good's Oh Boy. Millions of teenagers watched to see him perform alongside Cliff and Marty Wilde.
Jack used him because he was the right kind of sound and the right kind of voice for what he wanted. And I'm glad he used him, and I'm glad that piece still remains of Three Cool Cats.
I want that little.
It's just lovely to see us all again as we used to be. He was a great guy to work with, and he had something really which I thought that maybe some of us didn't have, and that was a really good voice. You know, he was a good singer. I mean, he loved rock and roll, obviously, and he used to do a lot like Little Richard type songs that were really very hard on the throat, but he was a beautiful ballad singer. I always thought he was a cut above us in so many ways, you know, he was.
A talented musician who could read music, Jack Good could rely upon him, and he became a mainstay of the programme, featuring every week.
Time was, and quite a few people used to make appearances on sound radio and then eventually make the grade in television. Here's somebody who's gone the other way around. Dickie, you've made quite a few television appearances, haven't you?
That's right, yeah, I've been on television.
Have you been on radio before?
No, this is the first time I've ever been on radio.
Well, welcome to Saturday Club, welcome to Sound Radio. Well, the next request, Dickie, is not only for you to sing, but for you to announce as well.
Oh, thank you very much. This one is for Susan Clark and her friend Dorothy Coops, and they'd like me to sing Slipping and a Sliding.
Slipping and a sliding, a creeping and a hiding, but so a long time ago.
Dickie signed with Larry Parnes, the manager of Tommy Steele and Marty Wilde. He was heading for big time with a recording contract and top billing on Parnes' sellout pop extravaganzas. Larry Parnes was the pop manager of the time, with a stable of teenage boys who were a very close family.
Duffy Parr, real name Raymond Howard, 17. Roy Taylor, 18, alias Vince Eager.
Dickie was, they call him the sheik of shake, because he had this great ability to be able to shake, literally shake like nobody else could shake. And he used to do his thing, great numbers like Slipping and the Sliding. But he did them differently. They weren't your usual rock and roll. They were more bluesy to me.
Sliding, peeping and a hiding, been so a long time ago. Slipping and a sliding, peeping and a hiding, been so a long time ago. I've been told, baby, you've been bored. I won't play those blues no more. Slipping and a sliding, peeping and a hiding, been so a long time ago. Slipping and a sliding, peeping and a hiding, been so a long time ago. I've been told, baby, you've been bored. I won't play those blues no more. All the people hiding, nothing but the side, you don't get done by time. All the people hiding, nothing but the side, you don't get done by time. Sleeping on the side and weeping and hiding, gonna play those blues no more.
I just joined Larry Parnes' organisation from my first professional gig with Rory Blackwell and the Blackjacks. And Rory was known as Rory Shakes Blackwell because he used to do that. And Dickie got his shake. They called Dickie the Sheik of Shake. And Dickie got his shake from Rory Blackwell, my first boss. So I knew the shake thing, but I didn't know anything about Dickie.
Slipping and a sliding, peeping and a hiding, been so a long time ago. I've been told, baby, you've been bored. I wanna play those blues no more. I'm gonna slip, I'm gonna slip. I'm gonna slip, I'm gonna slip. I've been told, baby, you've been bored. I wanna play those blues no more.
His first record, Slippin' and a Slidin', was a jukebox hit, but only reached the bottom of the hit parade.
You hold my hand and my heart skips a beat. I vibrate from my head to my feet. You look so tame, yet you set my heart aflame. Every time I kiss you, light, it drives me insane.
He was a pocket battleship, really. Little guy, loads of energy, wicked sense of humour. fantastic on stage.
From my head to my feet. Well, every time I'm with you, Lord, I feel so fine. I get a funny feeling.
I mean, it's a complete character. I mean, I remember once at Southend Odeon when the audience were giving him a bit of stick. I don't know why, because he was like a man's man, really. And he got the ump, Dickie, and he goes out and he threatened the whole audience. He said, right, I'll see you all outside after the show and we'll sort it out. You know, obviously nobody was there when we went out the stage door, but he was prepared to take the whole world on. But that was Dickie, you know.
Every time I'm with you, Lord, I feel so fine. I get a funny feeling running up my spine.
He was a practical joker. He was always dressing up. I mean, I've seen that photograph of him and Duffy dressed up. I mean, that's straight out of Some Like It Hot.
My knees get weak and my head's in a spin. I look at you, you look at me. I vibrate from my head to my feet. I vibrate.
Dickie, I hate to wake you, but would you come over here to the microphone and say hello to all your friends? You look like a weary traveller.
Well, I just got back from a series of one night that's been away for a fortnight up the north of England, you know.
Yes? Did you have a good time?
Oh, lovely. Very happy.
Had some good gigs and good laughs.
Lovely, yeah.
You bought a little request record, or?
Oh, well, there's one number that used to go down very well when we was away on tour that I like to dedicate to the newfound friends and fans, and it's called No John.
They would play 2 shows a night, whether tickets were sold or not.
In the audience was 6 people, and the theatre held, I think the theatre holds about 15, 1600, and there were 6 people in the audience on the Wednesday night first house. And Dickie walked out, and he did the first number, and they applauded like mad, you know. And he said to him, "Thank you very much. I would like to say to you, if you'll stay for the whole of my act, I will get a taxi to take you home after."
He had a wonderful sense of humour, but he was wicked. I mean, he got us into serious trouble once. What happened was we were on stage doing the gig. Dickie had gone out for a pint in the pub, and in those days we always used to wear a bit of makeup on stage, full of lights. We weren't allowed to wear it on Sunday, the Lord's Day Observance Society. But Dickie had gone to the pub, and there was a few local lads in the pub, and he'd gone in on his own with his makeup on, and somebody had gone puffed up, and he'd whacked him, and he'd run back into the theatre. Anyway, the show went on for a couple of hours, and at the end of the concert, we couldn't get out of the theatre. There was about 200 local Birmingham teddy boys outside the stage door screaming blood.
Dickie's stage act was hypnotic and he always went down a storm, but despite his constant touring and frequent TV appearances, his records, although well received, barely managed to break into the top 20.
I mean, that was important to be on Jack Good's show. There was a buzz with Dicky Pride for all the time he was with Larry Parnes.
We'll be singing.
On the bus, on the Timpson's coach, on the Parnes tours, Dickie was always trying to get us to sing 4 freshman harmonies, which for young rock and roll kids like myself, that was really radical stuff. And he'd be going up and down the bus saying, "You sing that, I'll sing that, you sing that." And the 4 freshmen, as you know, were a fantastic sort of close harmony singing group. And for young rock and rollers like us, that was like really something radical. And he was determined to get us to do it.
We're laughing.
He was totally different to the rest of us, and I think that had he been with another manager, I think if somebody who had a good, strong fatherly instinct and control over Dickie, Dickie would probably have been one of the biggest stars this country's ever seen.
He genuinely loved jazz singing, and he obviously had a desire to do it, but we were all locked into what we were doing with Parnes. There was a trad boom in like 1960 or something, and Larry decided to jump on the bandwagon, and he put a big band on stage for one or two. They called it the Rock and Trad Show, and that gave people like Dickie an opportunity to move slightly more into the jazz side of things.
This one is from Irene of Hampton, who would like me to sing for my first recording called "Don't Make Me Love You."
Don't make me love you.
The voice had got this, it's got this wonderful sad quality, sort of resigned sadness in it. If you know a bit about singing, you can hear that, and you know that it's not found often. It's a great thing to have if you got that naturally. They all try to do it.
Don't make me kiss you if you're just playing, 'cause I'm not.
It was like a very good knowingness about it for somebody 18. I mean, I got blues harmonicas older than that.
But if you love,
The quality is there, and they knew it. The boys, we knew it. We could see somebody that had, was vastly more knowledge. If he'd have looked like Elvis, we'd have been more frightened. We'd have been really frightened. He'd have been really dangerous. And I think that is one of the things. He wasn't a bad-looking bloke. He didn't look like the glamour boys of the day.
Unlike Larry Parnes' latest sensation, Billy Fury.
it's like a storm in the Atlantic, golly gee, I go a Friday about you. 'Cause you're nothing gonna really just standing me up in the queue. I have a funny kind of feeling.
Dickie and Billy had a seat behind myself, and there was somebody behind them, and they were laughing and giggling as they did. And all of a sudden they started singing this song, and at the time there was a song in the hit parade called Jimmy Brown and the chapel bells are ringing, da 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 da. It was number one, if my memory serves me right. And all of a sudden, I can only remember the last line, but all of a sudden I realised that they'd written new lyrics to this song about Larry. So they buried his big arsehole in the Elephant and Castle, farewell to the biggest queer. And Dickie wrote that, and that's what he thought of Larry. And they sang it on the coach for all to hear. And Dickie would do this. He was a real, I was a bit of a rebel, but he was a real rebel. He was a real rebel, Dickie was. And rightfully so, because he was so, I think he was so constricted in what he should have been allowed to do.
Dickie's behaviour and mental stability was causing Larry Parnes concern. Pride was put on probation after being found guilty of stealing a car and smashing windows, but he was also forming a close bond with Parnes' new protégé from Liverpool, Billy Fury.
And they just cut each other's hands and become blood brothers. And that was what Dickie and Billy were like.
Billy even moved into the Croydon council house Dickie shared with his mum and sister.
They actually shared a double bed together because that was all that was available.
Larry Parnes was worried enough to send his chief troubleshooter and roadie, Hal Carter, to check out the situation.
He would wake up in a night screaming and shouting. And then he'd say, what's he doing? And he'd say, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I said, I'm not doing nothing, Dickie. I said, you were screaming and shouting, and I thought there was something wrong. Because he was just, as I say, having these nightmares, pulling his face and everything. And he was really was tormented with it, you know. So I went back to Larry Parnes and I said, look, I can't carry on with this. And I said, and I'll tell you now, if you don't get that Scouser, that Liverpool kid, Billy Fury, away from him, I said he's going to destroy him.
It comes back to their career. What they do in their private life is really their own business, but at the same time they have to watch their career, and one thing can connect with the other, so you have to be very careful.
Larry Parnes grew tired of Dickie's antics, and when Oh Boy finished its run, his television appearances became rarer. Parnes even left Pride and Vince Eager to fight over the same song.
We both recorded Primrose Lane. Now, why Larry would let us both record it in the first place is a mystery, because basically we were just against each other. We were just devaluing each other's chances of getting anywhere with it.
Dickie's growing interest with jazz was to be too much for Parnes. Jazz was never going to be a moneymaker in those days. In 1960, less than 2 years after signing him, Parnes dumped Dickie, leaving him to go his own way. Maybe Parnes didn't understand him, but Dickie knew what he wanted. He released a single backed by the Ted Heath Band and an album of standards and jazz songs called Pride Without Prejudice, now regarded as a classic of its type.
But Dickie took it way beyond that by becoming like a jazz singer, which would put you on the dole immediately. The singing was great. You know, for us that was kind of jazz singing. Look what Robbie Williams has just released. And I think Dickie's record probably just, crept out. But I was forever impressed with it.
Another reason for his split with Parnes was his involvement with a new girlfriend, Patricia Arkell. In 1962 they were married at the Holborn Registry Office. 2 years later they had a son, Ricky. He remained close friends with Billy Fury and Duffy Power, though his own records weren't selling. He even had to get a job as a van driver to pay the bills for a short time.
I never was cut out to step and strut out. Give me the simple life. Some find it pleasant, dining on pheasant. Those things roll off my knife. Just serve me tomatoes and mashed potatoes. Give me the simple life. A cottage small is all I'm after, not one that's spacious or wide. A house that brings me joy and laughter, and the ones you love inside.
When I stayed round there on their settee at Coram Mansions, he'd have a little speaker, and he'd have a fantastic radiogram they had, because that was good then, right? A good radiogram, and 12 records. They go to bed, fantastic records. Cuban, Charles, Peggy Lee, Sarah Vaughan, wonderful.
Dickie's marriage to Tricia began to suffer due to his musical frustrations and their experiments with drugs.
Him and Tricia were all rolling all the time, you know, really. It's probably why they didn't. That's probably why they broke up, because he spent it's all he ever spent doing. I mean, it sounds nothing now, but it was fairly sort of something then.
In 1963, the heyday of the beat group sound, Dickie formed the Governors, but they had little success. His marriage split and Tricia left him, taking young Ricky with her.
Tell me you will love me till you die. And I think Dickie might have had problems trying to sort of reinvent himself. But as he was always interested in jazz, even in the early days, I think he stood to have a pretty good and successful career.
With his wife and child now gone, Dickie drifted into the jazz and soul scene, but he was also becoming more dependent on hard drugs.
There was a black girl, and she was a junkie, and he shacked up with her for a while. He was probably getting his dope from her. We scored at garages, just ordinary, I called them, and some of my friends, who were them, Humber Hawks. Remember the Humber Hawk car? We used to call these guys Humber Hawks. I was like, oh yeah, so you want some Drenamil then? Yeah. So I like your Humber Hawk. Fill it up.
When Dickie was first taking heroin, addiction was relatively rare in the UK. Then there were less than 600 registered addicts.
These men and women are drug addicts. The paper is their prescription to obtain drugs, and the object of their wait is the all-night dispensing pharmacy in Piccadilly. At the stroke of midnight, they're entitled to take another day's allotment of narcotics.
I had some liquid methadone in a syringe. I'll just tell you this because it shows you how sort of destructive he could be. He just went like that in his leg, through his trousers. He don't sort of like, oh, let's, roll your sleeve up, mate, and I'll do it for you. They just stab him with it, didn't it? He did it. He did that. So it was a very crude sort of druggy thing.
There's nowhere for these people to go. An endless void between this fix and the next. They will all finally seek help or suicide.
One day I took a record round there and it was Robert Johnson. I played this Robert Johnson, and, I remember the line, I've been mistreated, but I don't mind dying.
I've been mistreated, don't mind dying, this moment.
I've been mistreated. I remember it was on that, just after that line. And he said, you'll be all right after all this, he said. And he looked sort of, slightly mean, actually. Not just a tad resentful. He said, you're one of those people. But he could see such a thing, that he had something in himself that wasn't controllable, that he didn't know how to deal with, and it could, in the end, do him in.
Some people tell me that this word
Dickie struggled against the downward spiral, and in 1966 he formed the Sidewinders, a soul-influenced outfit made up of some of jazz and rock's top players. They had some success performing, and were even used as the backing band for Little Stevie Wonder on his first European tour as a 15-year-old. Despite gigging with Stevie Wonder and sharing the bill with groups like the Yardbirds and the Animals, Dickie often couldn't be bothered, sometimes not even turning up. The effects of the drugs were catching up on him, and the band eventually petered to an end. Dickie realised that he had to stop the rot, and he returned home to live with his mum and sister.
The way you wear your...
I was absolutely shattered. I had no idea. And he was, of course, at that time then on heroin. And we then got him in touch with the doctors and all the rest of it and got him into a programme.
Dickie was admitted to hospital. Unfortunately, his doctors argued that his addiction was a result of his depressive personality, a theory which even in the mid-60s was well past its sell-by date. Journalist Charles Langley wrote a play about Dickie's decline, Pride with Prejudice.
The problem was that the way they chose to treat his depression was by giving him a lobotomy.
The way you haunt my dream. No,
we were just told that they were implanting radioactive seeds, that whereas at one time the treatment had been a full frontal lobotomy, which left you as a zombie. This treatment was just implanting radioactive seeds in that frontal lobe, which would help the craving.
What it did is it cut what's called the white fibres, the connective tissue between the frontal lobes of the brain and the rest of the brain. And it did, in fact, people say, improve him for a time.
You could see the old Richard there coming through again, you know, instead of this awful manic depressiveness that he'd had. He was beginning to be more like himself, and he actually had got a job, which he was coping with quite happily.
For a year, Dickie had control over his habit, and his appearance improved, but in the end he couldn't resist going back to his old haunts in the jazz cellars and bars, where his old mates were still part of the drug scene.
You're a fabulous cure, for the blues.
He went up to London and met an old acquaintance who'd also been a heroin addict. And sometime during that evening, he took heroin again.
Please find.
And then he went home on the bus, all the way back up to Selsdon, and went to bed as normal, but of course thought, oh, you know, as I go to bed, that's when I take my methadone. So he took his methadone.
Probably he woke up sometime during this period, muzzy, sleepy, probably wanted to go to sleep again, may well have forgotten he'd taken a dose of barbiturate anyway, and he probably took some more, and that was it. It was enough to kill him.
If you forsake me.
Went into the bedroom and he was just dead.
Dickie Pride died on the 26th of March 1969. He was only 27.
I enjoyed playing on stage with Dickie more than any of the other artists, including Billy Fury, including Gene Vincent. And he had a long way to go, but unfortunately he cut it short.
Don't make me love.